It was a sweltering summer night, the kind of heat that sticks to your skin and makes you sweat just standing still. I was driving home from a late shift at the diner, taking the back roads to avoid traffic. Streetlights were scarce, and the further I drove, the darker it got. Just endless fields stretching out on either side of the lonely road. Then I saw her, a small figure standing by the side of the road, bathed in the pale glow of my headlights. It was a young girl, maybe 8 or 9, wearing a thin white dress. She looked lost, clutching a worn teddy bear in her arms. My gut told me to keep driving. It was too late at night, too far from anywhere for a kid to be out alone. But something about her sad eyes got to me. I pulled over a little way down the road and slowly backed up. As I got closer, I could see she was trembling, her face streaked with tears. I rolled down the window. "Hey there, little one. Are you lost? Do you need help?" She didn't answer. She just stared at me, her eyes wide and unblinking. The hair on the back of my neck stood on end. Something felt off. Before I could say another word, she lifted her hand and pointed a finger directly at me. And that's when I noticed it. Behind her, in the window of the abandoned farmhouse across the road, a pair of eyes glowed in the darkness. My blood ran cold. I slammed the car into reverse and sped away. The image of the girl and those glowing eyes seared into my mind. I never found out who she was or what she wanted, but I'll never forget the terror I felt that night. To this day, I can't drive down a dark road without thinking of her and those chilling eyes in the window.
The city was my sanctuary at night. Empty streets, cool air, a sense of peace I couldn't find during the day. I loved my midnight jogs, the rhythm of my feet on the pavement, the distant hum of traffic my only company. One night my usual route took me through a park I'd run past 100 times before. It was dark, but the lampposts cast a dim glow, enough to see by. As I ran, I noticed a figure sitting on a bench in the shadows. A man, hunched over, his head buried in his hands. I slowed down, a little uneasy. It wasn't unusual to see people out at this hour, but something about the way he was sitting there, so still, set me on edge. I considered crossing the street, but something stopped me. Maybe he needed help. "Hey, are you all right?" I called out, taking a tentative step closer. The man didn't move. I called out again, louder this time. He slowly lifted his head and I saw his face, or what was left of it. His skin was pale and drawn, stretched taut over his bones. His eyes were sunken, hollow pits in his skull. His lips were pulled back in a grotesque grin, revealing rows of sharp, pointed teeth. He rose from the bench, his movements jerky and unnatural, and took a step toward me. Terror, pure and primal, surged through me. I didn't wait to see what he wanted. I turned and ran faster than I ever had before, the sound of his rasping breath seeming to follow me. I didn't stop running until I reached the bright lights of the all-night diner a few blocks away. Looking back, I saw nothing but the empty park. I never saw the man again, but the memory of his face, his eyes, his teeth still haunts my nightmares. My midnight runs ended that night. Now, even the thought of the city after dark sends shivers down my spine.
My grandmother always said leaving a radio on at night kept the bad dreams away. The constant static, the faint murmur of distant voices, it was a comfort in the darkness. After she passed, I inherited her old radio, a heavy Bakelite thing from the 1940s. It still worked, crackling to life with a twist of the knob. I kept it on my bedside table, a tangible reminder of her love and a shield against the nightmares that had plagued me since childhood. One night a storm raged outside. Wind howled, rain lashed against the windows, and the old radio crackled and hissed with the electrical disturbance. I lay in bed, listening to the storm's fury, the radio's static a soothing counterpoint. Then I heard it. A voice, faint at first, cutting through the static. A man's voice, deep and gravelly, whispering my name. I sat up, heart pounding. I was alone in the house. I told myself it was just the storm interfering with the signal, playing tricks on my sleep-deprived mind. But the whispering continued, growing louder, clearer. my name over and over, laced with a chilling urgency. I fumbled for the radio, turning the knob, desperately searching for a different station, anything to drown out that voice. But the whispering persisted, following me across the dial, growing louder with each station. Panic welled up inside me. I ripped the plug from the wall, silencing the radio. Silence. Blessed silence. I lay awake until dawn, the storm a distant memory, the radio a silent, menacing presence beside me. I never plugged it in again. To this day, I can still hear the whispers and the static calling my name, a chilling reminder of the night the storm brought something sinister to my bedside.
Antique shops always held a certain allure for me. The musty smell, the jumble of forgotten objects, each with its own story to tell. I was browsing a new shop one afternoon when I spotted her. She sat on a shelf, nestled between a chipped teapot and a tarnished silver frame. A porcelain doll, her painted blue eyes staring vacantly ahead. She wore a faded pink dress and a once bright yellow bonnet. Something about her melancholy expression drew me in. She looked so lonely, so forgotten. I picked her up, surprised by her weight. She felt strangely cold to the touch, sending a shiver down my spine. "She's lovely," the shopkeeper said, materializing beside me. "Found her in an old estate sale. A real antique, that one." I hesitated, a strange unease settling in my stomach. But something about the doll's sad eyes made me want to take her home. I paid for the doll and took her back to my apartment. I placed her on a shelf in my living room, her vacant gaze seeming to follow me around the room. That night, I woke with a start. A cold draft snaked through my apartment, and I could have sworn I heard a child's giggle echoing in the darkness. I shivered, pulling the blankets tighter around me, telling myself it was just the wind in my imagination. But then, I saw it. The doll. It was no longer on the shelf where I'd left it. It was sitting at the foot of my bed, its blue eyes wide and staring, a menacing smile now etched across its porcelain face. The giggle came again, closer this time, chilling me to the bone. I scrambled back in bed, heart pounding as the doll's gaze seemed to pierce through me. I didn't sleep another wink that night. The next morning the doll was gone, vanished without a trace. But the memory of its chilling smile and that haunting giggle still sends shivers down my spine.
Driving alone at night had always been my thing. The quiet hum of the engine, the endless ribbon of highway stretching out before me. It was liberating. One night, I was driving back from a business trip, the highway deserted at this late hour. The only sounds were the low rumble of my tires and the soft music playing on the radio. I glanced in my rearview mirror, a habit I'd developed over years of driving alone. That's when I saw them. 2 pinpricks of red light glowing in the darkness behind me. They were too high off the ground to be another car's taillights. I told myself it was just my tired eyes playing tricks on me, a trick of the light. But as I continued driving, the red lights remained, growing steadily brighter, closer. I gripped the steering wheel tighter, my heart pounding in my chest. I didn't want to look, but I couldn't help myself. I glanced in the mirror again. This time the red lights were closer, and I could have sworn they pulsed with an eerie life of their own. A wave of fear washed over me. I stepped on the gas, pushing my car faster, but the red lights kept pace, their glow becoming more intense. I switched lanes, hoping whatever was behind me would pass, but the red lights followed, their intensity growing with every passing second. I was starting to panic. What were those lights, and why were they following me? I exited the highway, my heart racing, the red lights still fixed on me in the rearview mirror. I pulled into a brightly lit gas station, hoping whatever was behind me would disappear. I waited, heart still pounding, but the red lights were gone. I never saw them again, but the memory of their eerie glow, the feeling of being hunted, still sends chills down my spine. To this day, I can't look in my rearview mirror without remembering the night I was followed by those terrifying red eyes.